Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I guess by everyone, this is probably just DVH and Emily. So, hello. Hope you guys are doing well. I just watched Lime's video. He inspired me to use the Chicago Cubs mug. And, we're going to be pretty relaxed here. At home, it's actually the first time I've ever worn a dress shirt with sweatpants. Usually I would go the full way, but yeah. In full disclosure, I am wearing sweats, and it feels amazing. So yeah. My topic has turned out to be how Saturday Night Live has kind of reframed and portrayed political presidential candidates in the 2008 election, 2012 election, 2016, and I'm also probably going to dive into a little bit in terms of the present and just kind of future projections with that, and I'll touch on that a little bit more as we go. But yeah, so kind of why I chose SNL as a topic as a whole. Back in historiography, Stephen Lowe probably had one of the biggest factors into why I chose it. Obviously came into college really thinking more towards, I'll do a senior thesis on Brexit, encompasses political science, encompasses economics, the big thing going on in the world. And it still is, it's just not, it's not really entertaining anymore. It's just kind of boring at this point. And so when Dr. Lowe was like, hey, choose something you're going to enjoy, well, you're going to be doing a ton of research on it, so choose something you can enjoy researching. I started thinking, I'm really entertained by some of the political sketches and stuff in SNL. I thought it'd be really fun my computer's going to die. That's not good. Figure that out. But he was like, choose something you're going to enjoy, and I had been watching a lot on just YouTube, just some of the popular ones, and watching a lot of stand-up comedy in the past year. And I was like, hey, I wonder if I can connect this somehow, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to do it. So I did. But yeah, outside of that, SNL has obviously always been just kind of a staple thing. I think for a lot of Americans. There's my dog. I don't know if you guys want to see him. He's gonna leave. Yeah, so I've always just kind of watched it, but never necessarily grew up watching it. So I thought it was a really great way, a great opportunity to kind of go back and watch some of the older episodes that I never really watched, and especially 2007, 2008, even 2011, 2012. Really never started watching it probably close to the end of high school, and then into college. 2016 election was a lot of fun with a lot of sketches they've done, and a lot of them that they've done since. But the cast I always remember being centric was the Seth Meyers cast, and so being able to come back and watch even just the weekend updates from that time period and that era was a lot of fun for me. But yeah, I always thought just SNL was a really interesting thing, and connecting media and politics is such an interesting topic. I know my mom used to work for the ex-mayor of Boston back in the day, Kevin White. He taught at Boston University, and I know he even did his entire coursework that he was teaching on while he was a professor was on kind of media and the politics through the communications and political science department there. Hey, buddy, don't bark. And so, yeah, I think I've always just kind of had a knack for seeing, how is this portrayed? Because obviously, everything the media influences our personal decisions, whether it's what we wear, what we do, what we drink, how we think we should be looking. And so it's interesting to dive into that. But yeah, to kind of touch on the research methods. Obviously, the biggest one was just watching all the content. That was pretty great on my sister's Hulu account, and most episodes are there. Also, if you go on NBC.com, you can watch kind of just the sketches themselves, within each episode. It shows all the sketches, so you're not really necessarily watching the entire hour-long episode. You can kind of see which ones might already have political inclination. which kind of had to speed up that process too towards the end. When I discovered that, that was really great. But it was still nice to watch, obviously, the entire episodes as well. Kind of through that was just taking a lot of notes while watching it, and then, going back and looking for some of the stuff they kind of use as their primary source. What are they basing this sketch off of? If it's, a first Democratic debate between Hillary and Obama, and this is kind of how they're portraying the two, like, let's go back and watch the original and see kind of how that went as well. But definitely trying to keep a little bit more focus on what occurred in the SNL sketch, but then also doing a lot of secondary resources were kind of all over the place. Whether that's, news articles and stuff that were published about that, there's a lot of stuff of, Trump's criticism of it. And a lot of people have criticized it since, 2015 for being a little bit over the top politically. But I think you can always attest to that. I guess it's kind of getting into the findings, but, NBC as a studio, yes, is Democratic. There's no really way around that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think they have an agenda when they put on the sketches. I think they just try to be as funny as possible. And a lot of times, the material that either party can give is sometimes really funny. They're always aiming to just get the laughs and get the views. That's probably the most important thing to them. They're a business at the end of the day. And so looking through a lot of just the outside news sources, but as well as, Tina Fey has books, and there's other studies that have been done on the subject, actually, which is really cool. I thought it was a unique subject, but it makes sense that people would study into that, especially with kind of the Fey effect, and seeing like, hey, is that real or not? I guess coming into the findings of that, if anyone wanted to know, it would probably lean more likely than not, especially for that one specifically. I think Tina Fey only appeared as Sarah Palin before that election in 2008 6 times, which is just not a lot. And I mean, it does correlate if you look at it, with Obama increasing his spending towards the end as well. But I mean, yeah, you can definitely argue that she gave Tina Fey a lot of content, and the opportunity to make fun of her a lot, and that, it definitely probably carries weighting, and people see that to, a trumped up measure of what is actually happening. So looking at debates between Hillary and Obama, and seeing, Obama is super extra chill, and Clinton is very, obsessed about herself. She's very hawkish in these sketches, and that's not to say she's not hawkish in real life, and Obama's not chill in real life. I would agree with both those statements, but it's definitely trumped up, but it is trumped up for the comedic effect. It's also funny because it is typically a play on, what had actually probably happened during that debate. If the moderators kind of were showing a little more favor towards one of the candidates than the other, Saturday Night Live will, jump on that and make sure to utilize that and kind of make fun of that. That way, if anyone had actually seen that as well, they'll pick up on that and be like, yeah, that was ridiculous. Like, come on now. But yeah, and then doing some other research methods as well, talking to some people that were alive back in the 60s. I wanted to kind of start my paper off with just kind of a background to, media's involvement in politics and politics involvement in media. And so I thought a really good kind of crux point to build up to was the JFK-Nixon debates, being kind of the first time that you're seeing actual presidential candidates on TV debate against each other, and, always growing up in school and hearing that it was a huge landslide win for anyone who watched on TV would have gone with JFK. Anyone on the radio would have probably leaned a little more Nixon, just based on what they're saying, based on just being able to see people, and showing how being able to see a candidate versus what they say is such a different thing. And so if people aren't actually watching maybe the Democratic debates, and yet they see just a 2-minute, 3-minute video on YouTube of an SNL sketch of Obama and Hillary, that might be their only source of news. And that's the only thing that they're going to see, and so they might have very impacted decision based on the content they're consuming. And so I thought it was really good to get some kind of firsthand eyewitness accounts of people that remembered seeing this debate. This was the first debate they ever saw in their lives. It's for some of the people, it's the first time they ever even remember a presidential debate, because they might have been, maybe 10 or 12 during the time. But I still thought it was good to get their impression of, the candidates and how that really did impact it. And I think interviewing them now definitely has a bias effect to it as well. They knew the outcome as well, and they've heard the same things I've heard, that I've heard in school about them being very, very swayed. But obviously there are studies out there that would say it was more of a draw than anything on TV. And there's some other factors in that as well, who owned TVs during then. I mean, it's definitely very popular, but the people that didn't own TVs were these, probably a little bit more democratic leaning people that, couldn't maybe afford a TV. So it's definitely something to consider when looking at that. Yeah, the rest of the findings, it is really interesting, especially with Tina Fey in 2008. I think is one of the most interesting aspects of the paper, and or at least I thought it would be, especially leading up into writing it. It's because there's so much research done on it, and a lot of people would argue that her involvement in SNL as Sarah Palin really just tanked the McCain campaign. And when looking into it, I don't know how accurate that would be. Kind of before doing the research, I was really under the impression that it could be very possible that is the reason, and I would have presumed that she was in a lot more frequently, because I do remember it being a big deal. Everyone thought it was really funny, and it is really funny still to this day. But yeah, definitely very interesting. And I guess to touch back on research as well, just for a minute, having historiography as a whole, as a class, was a huge benefit, giving the opportunity to do research and have that time. It wouldn't have really been possible without that class. And being able to, figure out as well, like using JSTOR and things like that, just the online resources through the library, to get just different types of sources and material that would help write the paper. I'm definitely noticing as I'm writing it now, still working on it. It's starting to write a little bit more like the what's the word? Exegesis. How it just kind of writes itself, just because there's so much research that I have compiled, especially just in like research notes, and then the annotated bibliography, where I already kind of have what each source is about. It's really easy to just kind of pull that and pull it and plug it, and just kind of write off something that I've already spent time and hours into last semester doing. So there's really just, the hard part was developing a thorough intro and background that maybe I didn't necessarily do last semester, but coming in now and doing some of that, a lot of the JFK Nixon stuff, I did while I was writing the paper, but that is kind of at the beginning, so it's definitely really important to make sure that the beginning is strong and ready to go, and that the paper is going to flow right. But yeah, I think it's a hard thing, because you can take the Tina Fey, Sarah Palin bits and extract that to, I think, probably just the entirety of the thesis. I don't know if it has political effect to the degree that some people might argue, especially given that circumstance. Because it's hard to measure, right? You can track it in correlation with polls, but usually you can find correlation of, Obama increasing spending, he's doing more events in those last 6 weeks leading up to the campaign, and it's hard to argue bias as well. You know, seeing John McCain himself is on SNL, whereas you know Obama and Hillary really aren't on SNL leading up to that 2008 season specifically. So it is definitely difficult to argue any bias as well, I think. Even though you can say, yes, NBC is liberal, I don't think that that's a biased claim. I think that that's perfectly accurate, and but I don't think it has any huge leanings in how they're portraying or reframing or, you know, to NBC's specific agenda. And that's not to say they don't have an agenda, and I know the host usually has a lot of ability in terms of what sketches are going to be involved on the week that they're there. So if they're shutting things down, you know, it could play into who's the host that week in terms of what they want to show. I actually got offered the chance to go out to New York and tour 30 Rock, but unfortunately, like, that was last week. Yeah, coronavirus is not going to make that happen. But that definitely would have been cool to see the facilities and maybe run into some people, hear some stories for sure. But yeah, I was able to talk to a longtime producer of NBC as well, and he didn't produce on SNL, but you know he had some interesting stuff to say as well that I might include here in the paper as I kind of recently talked to him. But yeah, so like the final findings of it is that it is really hard to prove, but definitely there is always a correlation with, you know, an actor's ability to portray the candidate, I think, does have a huge impact in terms of how much people will talk about it and recognize it. You know, Tina Fey as Sarah Palin, but, you know, Fred Armisen as Obama in 2007, 2008 isn't great. And again, yeah, that's my personal opinion, right? But I think that would be pretty agreeable by anyone, is that it's not quite the voice, it's not quite the cadence that he's using, whereas we see Jay Farrow do it as Obama on SNL now, and he does a really, really good job, and I think it's a little more relatable, and you just see Obama in it more. So if he makes a joke, and maybe it's a negative connotated joke about Obama, it's a little bit more relatable because you could almost more believable that Obama could be saying something like that, and it might sway your opinion more when there's a less of a distinct line between the actor and the reality in the portrayal. Whereas Fred Armisen as Obama is just like, he's just a chill guy, but like that's just Fred Armisen, and Obama's Obama, and it just doesn't connect as well, you know. Even Amy Poehler, I think, does an amazing Hillary Clinton, and I think that factors in a lot. I think people, you know, she's able to make Hillary not seem great, and she's able to really make fun of herself as the actor while doing it, and I think that can definitely change people's opinions a little bit. And I think just in terms of looking at SNL, looking at future elections, as well as some past ones, I forget the year off the top of my head, but when they started introducing the, you know, best of SNL videos back in the day, I think it was probably 78, they introduced that. You know, for a lot of people that aren't able, you know, they don't have the time to stay up late on Saturday night and watch that, but they're able to watch just the snippets, and I think that that's trumped up now, even more so than ever, with just the ability to have media, you know, YouTube, social media, people posting things probably on Twitter and Facebook. I wouldn't really know, I'm not on them. But I know YouTube's a great source for finding just the videos that people are watching the most, and you're able to see that and be really involved in the culture surrounding politics in America today. A lot of it is based on that, because that's, I think, for a lot of people, politics isn't the funnest subject, but when you're able to connect comedy into it, it's a really great a gateway into that conversation of being like, hey, did you watch that SNL skit? Let's talk about kind of this funny sketch, you know, hey, what are your actual opinions on that now? And so I think they do a really good job. I'm a huge fan of the show. More so now than ever. I think they do a great job. I think it's not overly agendaed, and I don't really know how else to conclude this. I know it's supposed to be like 5 minutes of Q&A, according to my notes here. Notes. I don't know how to do that, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'd love to answer those. I'm looking forward to watching Emily's video later. I know you're watching this. If you're watching the whole thing, I would recommend hitting the 2x speed button at the bottom. That's definitely a really great call. You should definitely do that. I'm excited to watch yours. I'm excited to hear about your grandfather, great grandfather, World War One. That was a really cool topic. So excited to listen to that. And then to you, DVH, you're amazing. Hope you and the family are doing well. And if you have any questions on SNL, please don't hesitate to ask. I'd love to answer. And yeah, I'm going to get back to writing on this paper. I'm only about 40% done, so got a ways to go. But yeah, it's definitely, once I got through the first, 12%, it's gone a lot faster since, with having just all the material right in front of me, and it's all kind of already typed up. So just gotta do it now. But all right. I will catch you kids later.